Yo, kind of a different video. I've been kind of thinking about this for the past few days since it came out, but one thing that I really want to talk about is the Canadian budget, 2025. Mark Carney has, I guess, released that maybe about a week ago. And so I'm gonna try to give my thoughts on it, or at least I want to talk out loud on what this actually is, see if my interpretation is correct. I guess I can't validate that, but this is kind of my interpretation of it, because I think I've never looked into a budget ever. And so one recurring problem that I've always seen, or that I came across, was like, how do I find this stuff out? I can't go through that because even now I don't know everything, and I have to rely on different sources to just kind of consolidate it for me, and for me to transfer consolidate my information there. That said, I'm looking at the budget report, and so this is 23-page long document. This budget is looking to spend about $78 billion within 2025 to 2026. I think with an overall of, I believe it's $322 billion. This does include projected deficits, for which the first year is 78, and then eventually going to 57 billion. Most of the spending is obviously more towards the front, because I think, now this is my assumption, right now I would think that the overall economy or world economy is kind of like iffy right now. And so the way that it was put to me is that, well, you need to spend money to make money. And so I think that from looking at this, and given the circumstance that we are in, it makes sense to why the deficit is so high relatively. I think last year was a deficit of 50 billion. Let me double check that. From looking at last year, or 2024 to 2025, the deficit was about $40 billion. But it does make sense. I think that right now, things, at least within Canada, like I think they are trying to put emphasis on engaging the overall economy, or like the economy within Canada, and spending into Canada. The way that I currently am thinking about it is just with Keynesian economics. In periods of good times and whatnot, you should, as the government, like, tax people more, right? You should, because things are going well, you should take from that, and that kind of makes sense. The other side of that coin is, during bad times, the government should step in and try to encourage spending within there. And so I think that with a deficit this large, that's what it's encouraging, or that's what it's trying to do overall. Now, I listened to this thing where it kind of spoke to what their target metrics are. Kind of sucks I don't have the numbers for that, and I don't really have a source for that besides that one interview. But it was basically saying that the government is setting a pretty lofty goal for itself. It's saying that it wants this growth, but this specific number of growth. And while that number is great and would overall help, this money isn't necessarily enough for that associated growth level. Will it, drive up growth more than it has in the past little bit? Maybe. It might encourage more people to do certain things. There are more programs there. It's kind of like telling the future. You don't really know. But this is, I would say, I guess, a sign to be in the right direction. Okay, so one thing that I will say is that infrastructure is approximately 110 billion, and then productivity and competitiveness is approximately 100 maybe close to 105 billion. Defense and security, approximately 30 billion, as well as housing, averaging about 28 billion. I'll try to break down each subsection. So for infrastructure, I mean, I don't have the numbers to compare it to previous years, but I am just assuming, because this is a bigger budget, that means more things overall are being spent. And so looking at the infrastructure, I'm not too sure what infrastructure necessarily means. Is it just an umbrella term for like, we're going to build non-housing buildings, roads and whatnot? That's at least what I think about when I see the word infrastructure, as well as the subcategory of housing separate to there. But I think the associated jobs with that would be pretty plentiful. So onto that goes on to productivity and competitiveness. So I think this is a very interesting section, mainly because I guess maybe I can speak a little bit more to this just because of my background. I'm in engineering, but I think there's this trope that obviously there are Canadian engineers, but not many of them are creating or inventing things. And so when I see this large sum of money going towards something like productivity and competitiveness, this kind of begs the issue for making something that is more homegrown and something that is more competitive. There's the argument like, okay, why would we try to go into a subpar or like go into a market that isn't that's already defined, right? I think it's almost like a snowball effect, right? You need to get that ball formed and get going. And so maybe in the next 2 years, like something might not come from it, but maybe down the line, 5-10 years, something might actually transpire. And hopefully one of those stories can be a success story. I think that's the overall thing here with the incentive programs such as SHRED or scientific research and experimental development. As well, there are just things like the clean technology manufacturing investment tax credit. And so there's quite a few things there. We're almost trying to make it seem advantageous for other companies to come and set up shop within Canada because of these benefits. Defense spending is quite a bit. And my thought there is that, I mean, why do we need to spend so much money on defense? But with current things, maybe not going the way that most people would like, there's almost a need to showcase our defense program. Maybe you can think about it like this: if there are two people, but your friend has a weapon, nobody would really want to come up to you guys. However, if that friend is walking on the other side of the sidewalk and you are walking by yourself, he still has his weapon, but he is across the sidewalk. You are not necessarily going to feel as safe in that scenario. And so it's because of that analogy that I think that the defense spending is actually going to go up. It makes sense in my mind. I don't necessarily know what to say about housing. Thing I will say is I think there's a focus on the wrong type of housing, or not necessarily trying to fit the people to the house. What I mean by that is, I think within Toronto, a lot of people, or a lot of the houses being built, are more geared towards a single person dwelling, maybe a 2-person dwelling, but not something where you could, be established, build a family or something like that. And I think because that difference there, it's causing people not to be able to find what they want. With this spending on housing, like my assumption is that, maybe they're going to try to find what people want and build what people want, but I honestly do not have too much idea Even if on paper there is no issue, if anecdotally there are issues, then maybe it's something worth looking at in the first place. All in all, the message of the entire budget is that this is our time to build Canada strong, and I think that's pretty representative in the actual report itself. That's really it. I think that's my interpretation. I hope that was interesting. I'll see you guys another time. Bye.